Hello, my name is Leah. This is part 2 in our 3-part Yoga for Beginners series. If you haven't watched the first video, it will be linked down below, and I recommend you watch that one first. Today we'll be adding on to the first poses we did and going into a little more advanced, and still not advanced, it's still for beginners. We are joined by my friend Oksana. She will be doing a lot of the demonstration and helping us understand the poses a bit more. Let's get started. So the first one we are going to work into is low lunge. So start in mountain pose, if you remember what mountain pose was. And what you're gonna do is step forward. You can pick a foot to step forward with either your right or your left. That will be your front leg, and then your back leg will be behind you, and it'll be knee on the ground. So widen your stance, perfect. And you can untuck your back toe. Sounds good. Okay, you're a little deep in that low lunge. Keep up a bit, perfect. See how her knee is right stacked above her ankle? That's great alignment. And your back knee, if you're ever getting any tension or like stress in that knee being on the ground, you can fold the mat over and place it under your knee or put a blanket under. In a low lunge, your back leg is going to be on the ground. That's the difference between a low lunge and a high lunge. So usually your upper body is straight, your spine is nice and straight and tall. Your hands can be either at heart center, palms pressed into one another, or they might be up overhead where your palms are facing one another. Depends on what the instructor advises you to do. Typically, it will be together, palms heart center. This is low lunge, looks great. When we do high lunge, you are going to have the back knee lifted and you'll be up on the toes of your back foot. Your back leg will be nice and straight. You can have a bit of a bend in it if you like. And again, making sure to keep your front knee stacked right over top of that front leg's ankle. Same thing with the hands. They can stay at heart center or they can be up raised overhead, depending on what the instructor says. It's important that you keep your hips and your shoulders aligned to the front of the mat, the direction you're facing, and try not to spin in either direction. And also to keep your shoulders dropped away from your ears. Great job. Next thing we're going to do is Warrior 1. So there are 3 warrior poses, and they are meant to be transitional, like you transition from warrior 1 to 2 to 3, but a lot of the time in classes you don't do that. You will have a set of poses and then you'll do warrior 2, or then maybe you'll go into warrior 1. They don't necessarily have to be in sequence. So for warrior 1, it's pretty similar to high lunge. The difference is, rather than being up on the toes of your back foot's actually going to be turned out maybe like 45 degree angle, and your foot will be flat on the mat. You will still be bending into that front knee and leg, and it will be stacked right over top of your ankle. And your hands can be up overhead, palms to touch, or at heart center. Your hips are gonna try and spin out a bit more because that back foot is turned, and so you'll have to actively try and keep your hips aligned to the front of the mat and your shoulders as well. You can deepen the pose by widening your stance, or you can lessen the intensity by stepping your feet a little more together. It's up to you. From warrior 2, or from warrior 1 to go into warrior 2, you're going to extend your arms out wide. So each fingertip is reaching in opposite directions. Your shoulders are low and your arms are strong. You're really engaging all of the muscles in your arms. And your legs are in the same position as warrior 1. The crown of your head is tall, and you can engage your abs here to keep your upper body nice and stable. You could take a breath out of warrior 2. So to work into warrior 3, this one's a little more of a balancing pose. You want to become stable on either your right or your left foot. And a lot of times in classes, they will say to press into all four corners of your feet. That doesn't really make much sense to the average person, but basically it means from the top left and right parts of your feet all the way to the left and right parts of your heels, from toe to heel, pressing evenly, spread your toes wide. The more area you can have pressing of your foot onto the mat, the more balance and stability you will find. And really pressing in your toes to grip the mat, kind of monkey style. So pick a leg that you would like to try Warrior 3 on. I find that usually I'm way more better at balancing on my left foot than my right. Everyone's different. And whenever we're balancing on one leg, it's important to keep a slight micro bend in the knee. You never want to lock out your leg because you can really injure your knee and your tendons. Always keep a bend. So find that balance in that one foot. Keep the slight bend in that knee. And what you're going to do is bring your arms all the way up overhead. You can interlace your fingers and release your index fingers so you're almost like a little arrow shooting. And using the strength of your arms, tip your body forward, lifting your other leg straight behind you. It's most important to keep that lifted leg straight rather than how high you can lift it, even if it's an inch off the ground. You'll be hinging forward at the hips, not at the lower back, and keeping your arms lifted by your ears. See how there's like one line along her body. It doesn't matter how lifted she is. It just matters that your leg and your arms are in one strong line. Perfect. That is Warrior 3. Moving on, we are going to work into triangle. So if you would please go into Warrior 2 position. Usually you will transition from Warrior 2 into triangle or high lunge of sorts into triangle. What you're going to do is lower your left arm down by your left leg, and your right arm will come up overhead. So your arms are in Warrior 2 still, opposite directions, stretched. But this time you're hinged forward at the hips, and your arms, or your right arm is up at the sky, left arm down by your front leg. You'll find the triangle shape in your legs, but also there's a triangle shape in her arms on the top half as well. It's important here to really shine and press your chest out to the side and keep that back foot nice and flat on the ground. You can place your lowered hand on the ground, or you can keep it lifted. It's up to you, and also depends on the strength or flexibility that you're feeling for that day. Again, use your discretion. Don't feel pressured to do the full extension of the pose if it doesn't feel good for you. No one will come after you for not having your arm lifted. Perfect. That's triangle. Let's go into tree pose. So from mountain, where we are standing, this is another balancing pose. So pick a foot that you would like to balance on, and the other foot is going to lift up and then plant on the inside of your standing leg. You can decide where you'd like to plant it. It can be up high on your thigh, or it can be down low on your calf, or even like a kickstand, keeping your toes on the ground and just having your heel. The balance is up to you, however you're feeling that day. It's important to keep a little bend in that standing leg, and also avoid ever placing your foot on the inside of your knee joint. Again, our knees are delicate, and putting sideways pressure on a joint that does not bend that way can cause an injury. Your hands can stay on your hips. They can be at palms together at heart center, or they might be overhead. The upper body is up to you, up to the instructor, up to that class. Another note for tree is to keep the bent knee out to the side and not straight in front of you. So you really want to try and open that hip joint out to the side for tree. Something that helps balance in these poses is finding some little thing to focus on in the near area, whether it's a spot on the ground, a water bottle, someone else's mat, a window, something that's stable and isn't moving that you can focus your gaze on will really help provide you with a lot of balance. It's called a drishti, but you can call it whatever you want. Next pose we're going to do is forward fold. So, standing straight, usually you will inhale and lift your arms up overhead, and you'll hinge forward at your hips, not from your back, but from your hips, all the way down to fold over your legs with your upper body. A lot of people have tight hamstrings and therefore should not expect their legs to be straight when they fold forward. So bend into your knees as much as you need to in order to bring your chest towards your thighs. You want to try and eliminate the space in between thigh and chest. And if you have to bend more into your knees to do that, then you definitely should. Your hands can just rest on the ground, or you have the option to grab either elbow and kind of hang. You can grab your elbows behind your knees. You could grab your elbows in front of your knees, whatever's comfortable for you. This is supposed to just be a really relaxing pose, and it should release your lower back here, and it'll feel like a lift, because a lot of the times we're upright and our body is compressing our spine. So this is an opportunity to extend our spine. From here, we often do something called a halfway lift. A halfway lift is when we straighten halfway, try and keep your back flat. It's almost like a 90-degree angle from your legs to your back. Your hands can be on your shins, on the ground, wherever they can reach. But the goal here is to extend your spine out lengthwise from the crown of your head to the front of the mat and keep that back flat. You will usually do a halfway lift and then fold over your legs again. That's the typical flow, but not every class has that. And that's it. Those are the next poses in this 3-part series. And we have one more part left, and we'll see you there.
I just wanted to say a special thank you to our friends at Wade Studio for letting us use their beautiful space here. If you're in the Toronto area, you should definitely check them out at wadestudio.ca.